Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series, Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to talk more about the diminished scales. First off, if you like the diagrams for everything in this series, including the diagrams for this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. And this e-guide will be something that you can study and use as a reference for years to come. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download it. This is part 6.13 from our series, Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So we've gone over the whole half diminished scale and the half whole diminished scale. And when someone talks about diminished scales, those are usually what they're talking about. And it can be really confusing because you can hear diminished scale, you can hear symmetrical diminished scale, and then you have the whole half and the half whole. So I want to simplify that a little bit in this lesson and talk a little bit more about some other stuff about these scales. So first off, when someone says a diminished scale, usually what they're referring to is the whole half diminished scale, which, as you know, is just a series of whole steps and half steps, symmetrical, repeated over and over. You end up with root 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, sharp 5, double flat 7, and then 7. So that's the whole half diminished scale, and a lot of times just referred to as the diminished scale. You can look at the half whole diminished scale as actually the second mode of the diminished scale, or the whole half diminished scale. So you can see that this is the whole half diminished scale. You just have whole step, half step, whole step, half step, repeated over and over. If you were to start on the second note, you'd actually have the half whole diminished scale, because then you have half step, whole step, half step, whole step, repeated over and over. So you can look at the half whole diminished scale as the second mode of the whole half diminished scale. So here would be the half whole diminished scale, which would be root, flat 9, sharp 9, 3, flat 5, 5, 6, flat 7. So the whole half and the half whole are both diminished scales, but a lot of times when someone just says diminished scale, they're talking about the whole half. And then another confusing thing, you'll hear symmetrical diminished scale, and a lot of times when someone says that, they're talking about the half whole. So it can be really confusing when you're talking about the diminished scales because of the way people refer to them. And it's also confusing because both scales are symmetrical, so that could really be referring to either of the diminished scales. So in my opinion, it's best to say half whole for one and whole half for the other. And really they're closely related because the half whole can be considered the second mode of the whole half. And the whole half, as I talked about, is used over diminished seventh chords. That's typically how this scale is going to be used to solo over chords. And the half whole is typically used over seventh chords, dominant seventh chords, or 7 flat 9 chords. And another way people make these scales confusing is they might just talk about the whole half scale, and they'll say use this to solo over a diminished seventh chord if you start on the root, and then they'll say if you want to solo over a 7 flat 9 chord, start on the second note, which is true, but it makes it pretty confusing. It's easier, in my opinion, just to think of the whole half for diminished seventh chords and the half whole for seventh chords, dominant seventh chords, or dominant 7 flat 9 chords. So because the half whole is a mode from the whole half scale, you consider the whole half the first mode and the half whole the second mode. That means if you were to look at the whole half scale in the key of G, which is what's on your screen right now on the whole fretboard, if you started on A and made that your root, then you'd have the A half whole diminished scale. So it would work the exact same way as the major scale modes work. So G whole half and A half whole share the same notes. The intervals just change compared to the new roots, just like modes in the major scale. But something that's interesting about the diminished scales is that you have less keys. Really, you have the same amount of keys, but a bunch of the keys share the same notes, and I'll explain what I'm talking about because that's probably confusing. So if we were to start on G and play a whole half diminished scale, we'd have it in the key of G, obviously, but we could start on B flat, D flat, or E, and with the exact same notes get the key of B flat, D flat, or E. So G whole half diminished scale has the exact same notes as B flat whole half diminished scale, and as D flat whole half diminished scale, and as E whole half diminished scale. And you can see that on your screen because if you start on G and you go whole step, half step, and so on, that would just repeat. But if you started on B flat, it would be the exact same thing, whole step, half step. Or if you started on D flat, it'd be the exact same, whole step, half step. Started on E, exact same thing, whole step, half step. So those four scales share the exact same notes. So G, B flat, D flat, E all share the exact same notes, all would have the same scale patterns. And then another interesting thing, if you started on the next note, you would end up in the key of A flat whole half, and A flat shares the exact same notes as B, D, and F whole half diminished scale. So the keys of A flat, B, D, and F all share the exact same notes as well. Or if you started on the note of A, you'd have the A whole half diminished scale, but you'd have the exact same notes if you started on C, E flat, or F sharp. So the key of A has the exact same notes as the key of C, E flat, or F sharp. So really, there's only 3 keys to worry about. Obviously, you have all the keys because you start on each one of the notes, but the key of G shares the exact same notes as B flat, D flat, E. The key of A flat shares the exact same notes as B, D, F. And the key of A shares the exact same notes as C, E flat, and F sharp. And this works the exact same way for the half whole. So it works for both diminished scales. If I started on G, G would be the same as B flat, D flat, E, and so on. So these keys work in either half whole or whole half. So that can be something pretty confusing about the diminished scales, that they have technically all the same keys because they have all the notes of the scale, the chromatic scale, and you'd start on each one, but they share the same notes as each other and are grouped into 3. So that doesn't happen in like the major scale keys or melodic minor scale or harmonic minor scale. This type of thing only happens with symmetrical scales. So the major scale has 7 notes, and so does the harmonic and melodic minor, so you end up with 12 keys that all have unique notes in there from each other. They don't share the same notes. They share some of the same notes, but not all the same notes like this. When you have a scale that has more or less than 7 notes, you end up with different amount of keys, or keys that share the same notes. And the diminished scales have 8 notes, and you end up really with 3 keys. So hopefully that's not too confusing. It's something that you'll come back to often and have to think about a lot probably, because it's a pretty unique thing about this scale. And we'll talk about another scale that is similar in that way but has even a different amount of keys. So it's something to start understanding now, but you may not fully understand it, so don't worry about it. You'll come back to it often. But that's more about the diminished scales and what's unique about them. Go ahead and move on to the next lesson, where I'm going to talk more about the diminished 7th chord. And be sure to download the e-guide. All the diagrams are in there, and be sure to subscribe because we had at least one new lesson every day.